Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to view Haunt from 2019. I definitely want to go on and give this movie a thumbs up right out of the gate. I thought that this movie was okay. And I want to go on and list the positives and then go on and list the negatives. So, the positives about this film is to, of course, first off, state that the maze part of this movie is very elaborate. And I also feel that the unmasking of these masked characters were really interesting, more so than just like, okay, this person is probably connected to this person's life, so on and so forth. So the next thing, of course, would be to state that I like the ending of this film. I thought the ending was like, oh wow, like this ending was kind of smart. So now to go on and state the negatives about this film. So, first off, if I were to have gone on in the fewest words possible and explained to you this film, I would just state that this movie is to be a haunted house movie, and that's it. So it'd be like, wait a minute, like, who are the bad guys in this movie? Like, what's the story? Well, it doesn't really feel like much is really explained about this film, or we also go on and have really just a horror novel mobile game kind of feel to the story, where it seems that the story is focused on one person, and that really is Harper. And so, with that said, if I hadn't have gone on and seen movies like The Collector, The Collection, Margaux, which is Margaux, or just Escape the Field, or a number of other just kind of movies, like, I think for Haunt, like, I would have a drastically different feel about this movie. Just like, heck yeah, like, this movie's great. But I can just go on and say that this movie's okay. Because it just doesn't have enough story. Or the story, like, doesn't really matter. So, with that said, what is this movie about? Teeing it up. So, we have a girl named Harper who seems to have some boyfriend troubles at the beginning of this movie. And so her and her friends decide to go out to this club where, of course, Harper meets with a guy named Nathan. So we have them, after this whole club adventure, they decide to go to this haunted house. And that leads them to go on to find out that this one haunted house has a review somewhere, and the review is good. So anybody could have gone on and done that review, but that's what they just take it as. So they go into this haunted house, and so for most of this movie, we're starting to come up with a clear consensus whether or not that this haunted house is real or not real. If this is all just some kind of illusion and whatever, and so on and so forth. So, with that said, like, that is a very vague way to talk about this film, but, like, really the whole meat and potatoes of this movie is the haunted house part. So I'll kind of leave most of that up to spoilers. So with that said, I think it's about that time to mention where can you go on and see Haunt. Haunt is currently available on YouTube's, Vudu's, VUDU's, a number of apps you can go on and rent this movie, but I will also give you a free app equivalent. So the first thing that I would recommend is an app called Doxy, Doxcy. And this, of course, would be available on the Google Play Store. I would also recommend a app called Play UHD. Go ahead through the Google Play Store, search and find this app, and you'll find a logo that says Fox HD Movies on it. Go ahead and download that app, and you should be able to watch this movie as well as a number of others for absolutely free. I would go on and recommend stuff like Yes Movies or 123 Movies, but it seems that Those apps are a little bit difficult to find, so I'll just go on and give you 2 easy ones and then let you go on and just want to figure out whether or not to go into the others. So, through the Google Play Store. So, with that said, let's go on into that double 5 time territory because it is spoiler time. Because it is spoiler time. It's about the time you spoil this movie. I want to let everybody know that I'm kind of dealing with a cold or flu or whatever. So I apologize if at any point I might cough or anything. Like I'm just kind of getting through something. I saw this movie and then I got under the weather, and so I'm like, well, if I don't go on and review this now, I won't remember the movie. So I figured, like, best chances is to just try to get this done. So, with that said, let's go on in the beginning of this film. So, the beginning of the film, we have Harper, who is coming home with a bruised eye. Because, of course, she is tied to a boyfriend who is abusive. Drunk. So Bailey is to go on and tell Harper, like, well, hey, you should just dump him, just say it's over, and be done with it. So Harper is to be tempted to just state in a text that it's over and just go off to this club and with her friends that are like, well, hey, yeah, how about you go to this Halloween party with us? And Harper's just like, well, I don't have a costume. And they're like, we don't care. Like, you'll be weird, and weird is going to be okay there because it's a Halloween party anyways. So Harper goes with her friends to this party or this club. So we have Harper, who all of a sudden is sitting around with her friends and all of a sudden sees this one guy dressed as a baseball player. So we have Harper that is to realize that Nathan is going on and signaling. And Harper thinks, like, oh, he's signaling for me. Like, he wants me to come over there and talk to him. So Harper just starts walking over there. And then when she starts to spark a conversation with Nathan, come to find out Nathan was just trying to signal for another drink. And Harper's like, oh my god, this is so awkward. Ugh. So Nathan is just like, well, no, like, since you're talking to me anyways, like, how about we just talk? So Nathan goes on to explain that he, of course, always is to have a bat with him. And, like, he just had this just jersey lying around, so he would just thought he would wear it just as like a Halloween costume. And so Harper's like, well, yeah, I don't have a Halloween costume whatsoever, like, on me, obviously. And Nathan's like, well, maybe we can adjust that, because Harper is to go on and have this hoodie, and so Nathan just kind of puts over the hoodie and says, like, you're Red Riding Hood now, like, that's who you are. So we have Harper and friends that all decide after they have both Harper and Nathan, who bumps into Evan, who is getting into fights or arguments with people. We have them find out that Evan is to be in this human centipede costume that doesn't match the movie, because of course it doesn't, because it can't. So we go on to have Nathan, Evan, and Harper rejoin with the rest of the group, and they decide to go to this haunted house. We start to have these people being driven to this haunted house, and Evan, who I guess is to be this kind of Uber driver, is to want to try to get money out of these people for driving them all the way to this location. And he's like, well, hey, I gotta pay for my college tuition. And so Nathan ends up taking the thing that is to see how much that they're going to be paying him. Nathan chucks it out the window, just being very ticked at Evan for trying to take advantage of this. So we make it to this haunted house. There seems to be one review for this haunted house, and they're like, okay, like it seems like somebody really liked this experience, but that tells you, excuse me, that kind of doesn't really tell you nothing. So we go on to have everybody get out and find that this clown is to be having these two fists out like this. So Bailey ends up picking one hand's empty. They're like, well, hey, pick another. She picks another hand, the other hand's empty. And so then the clown ends up putting this hand up to Bailey's ear and is to give her a key. So Evan is like, oh, okay, like we have to put all of our cell phones into this one little box. And when we come back here, like we'll be able to get this box and get all of our phones. And so it's like, okay, great. That sounds great. So we continue on to have everybody go in because they hear this screaming and they're like, yeah, like this haunted house must be really great. So we have our group go in there, the Harper group, because that's the only character that really matters, right? So we have this group, and what ends up happening is this witch with this mask on is to take this hot poker, this poker from usually like a fire pit or God, what is the word? Like a fire, let's just say. So we have this person who goes on and kind of stabs this thing into this girl's face. And so they're like, wow, like that seemed pretty crazy to start this out. Like, man, like who knows if this is real or fake or not? Like, who knows? Yeah, really. So they push on to go to the next part of this. And they end up having to make their way through these spider webs, and there's a lot of people that are like, ugh, like I don't like spider webs, ugh. And come to find out there's legitimate spiders in that spider web that are crawling around, and Mallory ends up having like a thing in her hair that's actually a spider. So we then go on to have the characters now have to split up between this safe place and this not safe place. So there's a fork in the road that they have to choose. So we have Nathan, Bailey, and Angela go into the not safe area, and we have Harper, Evan, and Mallory go into the other direction, the safe area. So that leads to have Harper and Evan and Mallory need to find this hole that leads them down this huge maze of this labyrinth kind of thing that is to be made of all wood. So Mallory is to be the last one to make her way in through this maze. So we have her just disappear. Harper kind of looks back to try to see where Mallory is, and she's gone. So they're kind of very confused. Maybe Mallory got lost. Not quite sure. Harper ends up also seeing like somebody kind of making their way through this little maze, and she's like, oh, okay, it must be somebody else. So it must just be some random person trying to figure out where to go. So we have Harper and Evan making it further into needing to like slide down this one little slide. And so they find this zombie with this chainsaw, and the chainsaw ends up getting too close to Evan. Evan smacks this guy back. It's like, hey, what are you doing? So we have Evan and we have Harper that goes on to make it further into this next room that has this door. And so when Harper and of course Evan make it in this room, they find the other three in this room also. But let me now backpedal. Let me do a little bit of backpedaling. Because what happened to the other group? So, the other group were to have gone into their direction, and they had started to smell some kind of gasoline. They also saw over their heads this unusual meat smell. It just smelled weird. So we go further on to have our characters make it into this room where they have to put their hands into this hole. And as they start going in and putting their hands in this hole, we have Angela who puts her hand in a hole and is to kind of grab this noodle and kind of flings it at people. We have Nathan that goes on and puts his hand into a hole, and he grabs this grape and he eats it, this big massive grape. So we then have Bailey that puts her hand through this hole, and she gets nothing. But then Bailey then realizes that she had lost this ring, and she doesn't know where the ring is. Because Bailey had asked Harper for this ring, and Harper's like, yeah, go ahead and just, you take the ring. So what happens is that Bailey tries to get the ring back, and she ends up getting grabbed for this and cut for it. So when Bailey sticks her hand back out, after kind of yanking it back out, she then realizes that she is significantly cut with her arm, and she probably might not survive this. So the guys end up going on to this other room, and they meet up with the rest of the group. So that's kind of where we are. So when Nathan, Bailey, and Angela are meeting up with Harper and Evan, we have them to try and stop the door from closing. So come to find out, we have the witch again that comes with another body bag. And this time around, the body bag is actually Mallory. And so we have another hot poker situation, excuse me, which rams through Mallory's face. So they then still have suspicions of whether this is all real or not. And so we have them realize that, hey, man, we need to go through this door. Did Mallory have that key, the one key that they gave them to get into that one lockbox? Maybe it's the same key. So they try the key, doesn't work. We have Evan, who I guess is a lockpick man, so he ends up needing certain bobby pins to open this door. And come to find out, he's having issues. He's having problems. It's like, well, hey, maybe we just need a crowbar or some kind of something to just get this door open. Maybe that's what we need to do. So eventually the door ends up opening. And so they end up making it their way through. And Nathan is like, well, hey, you guys just hang back. I'll go on and get help. So Nathan ends up going to the next part of this, and it ends up being this room with one ghost with this white sheet over his head, and just a number of other mannequins that are all just kind of in this spot. So with their white sheets over their heads. So we go on to have Nathan, who is making his way past where this ghost was, makes it to the other end of this whole thing, and all of a sudden he ends up kind of hearing this loud noise. He turns around, and so Nathan just goes on to yell out to whoever is listening. It's like, well, hey, my friend is hurt, and can anybody help me? So we end up going on to have this masked man who is having the face of a ghost to say, it's like, oh yeah, your friend's hurt, like, yeah, let me go on and let me help you. So the ghost ends up going on with Nathan to go back to the rest of this group, and so he has keys for all these doors, and he kind of easily opens them and gets through all of this. So coming to find out, at a certain point, we start to realize that uh, the one of these things are trying to come after them. So we start to have, of course, the characters start to realize, like, well, maybe we can't trust this guy in this mask. And so they start to ask the guy in the mask, like, hey, what's your name? The guy's like, well, Mitch. Mitch is my name. And it's like, well, what's your last name, Mitch? Guy doesn't answer. So, like, yeah, you're lying to us. So we go on to, of course, have them go back to the part where they have to kind of crawl on all fours, and the ghost masked guy is to explain, it's like, well, yeah, like, there is a trap door that goes in there when you, like, have too many people go at one time, and your friend Mallory must have just fell through that, and, like, she's all a part of this act, and so on and so forth, and yada yada yada. So the guys are hoping, it's like, well, hopefully that's true. So we go on to have people start crawling back to the very beginning of all this. And Evan's like, yeah, I'll go first because I'm a lock picksman. And Nathan had gone on to drop the other key for that lockbox. So Evan's like, well, hey, if I go first, I'll go on and I'll pick that lock, and I'll get our cell phones back, and, like, I'll save the day. I'll call the police. Come to find out, the clown had already taken the lockbox and is, like, kind of microwaving and crushing all these phones as we kind of have his face come off, and his face is to look like a clown face, because every single one of these faces have to go on and represent whatever mask that these people are wearing. So I thought that that was really interesting. So we go on to have Evan go first, and he makes it through, and he kind of banging, like, hey guys, made it through. We then have Mitch, who goes next, and Mitch just puts up a thing over the opening so no one could get through. And so Nathan, when he's kind of waiting for Mitch, it's like, hey, you should have made it back by now. Mitch kind of like, hey man, come on through. And so Nathan is to realize that there's no way for him to get out of there. And so he kind of just smashes against this thing to try to get out of there. Is to realize that there is a trap door, and he kind of smashes through here, and he ends up in, like, the outside of this whole maze thing, and Nathan looks on as the one hole thing that he ended up putting his hand in, that it seems that there were razor blades at the end of one of the holes, and that's where Haley was to have gotten cut. Luckily, Nathan and Angela were to put their hands through the right holes. So we go on to have the characters start to realize, like, okay, like, where are the rest of the characters? Like, why haven't they signaled? Why haven't they whatever yet? So they then realize that the devil is to appear from out of this little maze. And so now We have them running off. Angela ends up getting stabbed in the face with this pitchfork. And so now we have Harper that goes on to run off to get into this other opposite end, this door, because she now has all these keys because she stole the keys from Mitch, the ghost. And she's trying to lock all these doors, keep the devil at bay. So we have Evan that goes on to make his way all the way back to the beginning by that entrance door. And so now we have the ghost that appears next to him. And so Evan's just like, well, where are my friends? And Mitch is like, well, like, they're behind me. Like, they're coming. And Evan's just like, I just want my friends. Like, I just want to get out of here. I just want my friends. And so it seems what happens next is Mitch goes on to attack Evan with his hammer and, like, kind of rips his head open and kills him. So next up, we have Nathan. Nathan ends up going into this seemingly looking like lunchroom where the clown was at with all of these phones, try to break them and whatever. Nathan is to try to grab one of these phones and try and call somebody. Then he realizes, like, oh crap, there's the ghost Mitch character. He's in here and I'm face to face with him. So Nathan ends up calling or texting Sam with the word help in their location. So Sam is like, all right, like, I'm going to go on and track these people down. Great. So we then go on to need to, of course, have Harper, my bad. Harper ends up going further into the maze, the opposite way, to try to win this maze, or win this haunted house. So she goes on to continue, and she goes through one of these, like, really dark rooms that she needs a flashlight to be able to see whatever she's going through. So we have Harper that is to kind of not see wherever she's stepping, so on and so forth. All of a sudden, she ends up stepping on a nail on her foot. Because in some room, there's a bunch of traps in here. There's a bunch of trigger things. We also have Harper that kind of falls to the ground. And she ends up having her hands stick onto the ground. And when she tries to pull them off of the ground, she ends up having, like, skin getting ripped off. Because I guess there's, like, super glue on one of these traps. So Harper ends up noticing this one vampire masked man who is trying to cut this one rope to try to have the exit that Harper is needing to go to kind of drop down. So we quickly have Harper that runs for the exit and makes it out in time. So let me pause here for 1 second. I apologize. So we have Harper that goes on to make it out of there, make it out of that part. So Harper then continues to find this one room that is to lead Harper to now figure out these clues. So the first clue is that Harper is to open up this dresser, and there's a thing of wallpaper in one of the dressers. Harper peels back the wallpaper to find a clue, and that leads her to one of the dolls. and then she rips off one of the heads of the dolls. The doll has another clue, and she's using this kind of mirror to read this whole clue. So this leads Harper to need to go under the bed, and she has this kind of Jack the Box like thing that she needs to go on and twist and does the. So Harper goes on and does this Jack the Box. I'm thinking, like, don't tell me that this Jack the Box thing is just going to lead to Harper's death. That'd be stupid. But so we instead have Harper, who, when this thing stops, like, unleashes this key. So Harper grabs it. All of a sudden, we finally have the devil that is behind Harper now gets in this room. Harper is underneath this bed. So the devil is to go on and take off this mask, and we find out that the devil has all these horns on his face. Oddly enough. Because he's the devil. So Harper, what she does is she's remembering a scenario when she was younger, when her father would kind of come after her and try to scare her when she was younger. So Harper then stabs this guy in the face and runs off to go into this room that says the end. After she has gone on and kind of wound it up and opened this door, we then have Harper, who gets into this room that kind of looks like the back of a semi truck. Who looks like the trailer of a semi truck. So all of a sudden we have Harper, who doesn't know what's going on here, and all of a sudden we have this gun that is just firing off out of control at this random timing. Harper doesn't know what the timing is, so she's kind of dodging and ducking, but she ends up getting hit in the shoulder. So Harper goes on to stop this gun before it fires anymore. And so that leads Mitch. Mitch ends up going off to find the Grim Reaper. And so Mitch is telling the Grim Reaper, hey, are you ready? And the Grim Reaper's like, yeah, let's go. So the Grim Reaper appears, and so Harper is to now try to figure out a way to take down the Grim Reaper, and she easily does. And come to find out, the Grim Reaper is actually just Bailey, and Bailey was to give back Harper her ring, because Bailey's gonna just die anyways. Because Harper had that pitchfork and she used it against Bailey. So she's probably going to end up dead anyway. She's going to bleed out because she's already bled too much anyways. So we then go on, then go on and have Sam. Sam is to make his way to this haunted house. He ends up checking it out, and come to find out what ends up happening to Sam is the same thing that happens to Evan. Mitch is to go on and find Sam. Sam is to go on and ask where his girlfriend is, and he ends up getting a hammer for his trouble. And killed. So, next, we have Harper that is to break through this end, realizing that people are coming for her. So we have the masked clown, who is to go on and light a match on one of the traps that already had gasoline poured all over it, because there was a contingency plan. If someone was to possibly make it through and get out of here, they were to torch the whole place and then just run off. I guess that was their whole plan all along, which was kind of a cool plan. So we now have both Harper, Nathan, we meet up back together, and they're kind of like in the behind the scenes part of this whole trap, this whole maze. So now that they've teamed up together, they're kind of wandering around, and they find the vampire masked guy, and he kind of takes off his mask. He's like, "Hey, like I'm not with them. Like I thought that this was crazy. Uh, they told me if I was to go on and kill somebody, that I would earn my mask, which means that this guy would go on and become a actual vampire, and that might have been what he wanted originally, but he realized how crazy this really was. And so he's like, hey man, I'll go on and I'll help you guys out. So just kind of follow me. So we go on and have the vampire mask guy lead these guys to this fence. So all of a sudden, Mitch shows up. And this time around, we of course have this struggle, which of course leads to Mitch getting a hammer in his own body, because he gets hit with a hammer in this one, this spot. And then next, we also have the guy in the vampire mask also get killed also, because the devil was to also get killed, because when Harper had that one little shotgun trap that she ended up getting shot in the shoulder, she used that same trap to shoot the devil and kill him, so he fell over. So we had the guy in the vampire mask, and they go on and they shoot him in the head, and they kill him. So we also go on and have the witch that ends up kind of popping out from this underground little place. And so how they dispatch her is Mitch is to kind of drag this woman back where that little latch was, and Harper ends up kind of slamming the door on this girl's face, to where we start to see that this girl really earned her witch face. And when you take the mask off, like, yeah, she has this real witch looking face, and it's like, wow, okay, well, her face is like freaking ugly anyways, and now it's even uglier. So we go on to also have the zombie guy who had the chainsaw. He comes out of the woodwork. We of course have Nathan that takes him out with a bat, smacks him, and takes him out. So after all of that, they finally are to go and to find a vehicle that works. That ends up being, I think, Sam's truck. They end up taking the truck because the truck still has keys in it, and they drive off. We have both Harper and Nathan that goes to the hospital. Nathan we kind of see just kind of going off. Harper, it seems, is to not go to the hospital yet, and instead Harper is to imagine that things didn't work out so well, but come to find out that his whole dream sequence, because what really happens is that Harper is in some hospital room and she's kind of healing her shoulder injury. And so this doctor is like, okay, yeah, everything's fine and you can be released now. Come to find out, these masked individuals are to know these people's addresses. So if they made it out of here, they would know these people's addresses and know what to do next. So we have this clown character that's wearing a mask that goes on to make his way through Harper's house, and Harper realizes that. So she goes on to put a trap on the clown to where he doesn't notice while he's walking. He all of a sudden is to realize that he steps on this thing of nails. And then when he tries to move, he ends up stepping on something else, which kind of keeps him there. So we go on to have Harper, who is to have this shotgun, and she shoots the clown in the head for revenge, having us realize that Harper is probably going to go after all these guys and kill all of them off, and the clown is to be the only one that's left because she had gone on and killed every one of them besides that one. So that ends up going on to wrap up this movie. That is the end of the film. I think I'm going to try to get out of here. I apologize about how I was during this review. I'm a little bit under the weather, but I realized if I were to have gone on and not done this now, I probably would have forgotten about it later. So that's the reason why I did this review. So I apologize, but I had to have done it, or otherwise I would have forgotten. So let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I did forget. But I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.